like I said in my beginning little statement, this area has a ton of conflict, and it's between Israel and Palestine. And this history goes back for thousands of years. The Jewish people, their story is documented in a little book that they call the Bible, if you've heard about that. And they have been through a lot. They've been captured, enslaved, lost in the desert, come back to their homeland and kicked out again. And then they spent a lot of time wandering around the world. In Russia, they were mistreated with the pogroms. So then they went over to Europe, which later on they were mistreated in the Holocaust. So this whole conflict goes back thousands of years. And there's a lot of different players, and it's very complex. And it's not a good guy versus bad guy thing. Because Israelites were kicked out of their homeland, they go back home and they want their land. Well, in the meantime, the last 1,000 years, the Palestinians have been living there. Almost 2,000 years. Palestinians have been living there, and all of a sudden now they get kicked out and they're not allowed to live where they wanted to. So it isn't just about the religion, it's about a lot. So this is very complex. Very complex. And what we're going to talk about here is very simple and basic about this. Well, if we go back, let's talk about the Roman. Now I want you to write down this word, diaspora. This is very important. Now, if you're familiar with the story of Jesus, I know Easter is coming up in the next couple weeks, so some of your families do that. If you don't, that's fine. I'm just trying to hit your prior knowledge. But the Roman diaspora, basically the Romans had controlled this area back in like the years 0 to 30. We're talking probably about AD 30. And they controlled it. So the Romans controlled pretty much all of Europe and the Mediterranean. And so they controlled this area, Mediterranean, and this area. And they saw Jesus as like a rabble-rouser, kind of a political protest guy, because he was saying there's only one God and claiming to be the Son of God, and they were still worshiping the Caesar. And they did not like anybody challenging him, so they wanted to get rid of him, and they did, right? They put him up on a cross. They crucified him along with a lot of the other criminals that they did that to, because he was taking away their authority. Well, over time, the Jewish people really got sick of it, so there was an uprising in Jerusalem. And the Jewish people were sick of it. They didn't want to listen to the Romans anymore. They were sick of being controlled by somebody else. So they started fighting back. And, well, I'm sorry, but this little group of Jewish people could not defend or attempt to fight off the whole Roman legion. So they end up getting kicked out. So then the Jewish people are, for lack of a better word, kicked out of Israel. They're sent packing. The Romans, who had this gigantic army and everything, were like, get the heck out of here, we don't want you anymore. So they're kicked out, and they spread, or they diaspora, right? They spread out all over. They get separated. Some go up to what we now would call Russia, others went to Europe, and some went into Northern Africa, all over. They got spread out all over from their homeland. And this is in maybe even up to AD 200. I don't have my specific numbers, but it was a long time ago. So we're talking old history, very complex. It's not very simple at all. Well, let's fast forward up to World War I. Now, last section we talked about the Ottoman Empire, which is headquartered in Turkey, right? So they're the Turks. They controlled this whole area. They were this gigantic empire who controlled a lot of the area. You can kind of see in my little diagram down here where they controlled this whole area. All this green area right here. They controlled that area. And during World War I, the Ottoman Empire was on the side of Germany and Austria-Hungary. And so they end up losing the war. So I'll just put Germany and Austria-Hungary. They were on the side of those empires and they lost. So the losers got their territory taken away. Just like Austria-Hungary got broken into a bunch of countries, so did the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire became Turkey. First time we see that country. And then these territories. They split it up and they created those territories. Sorry, I can't remember what I'm writing here. These territories. The British and the French wanted to control them until they could build them up and they could become nice land and nice little countries.